My sleep protocol, Valium or Xanax, and my morning wake-up routine would be Blvd.
Oh, Jesus.
I've taken no safety precautions in my steroid use.
Like, the only thing that could actually make your dick bigger in adulthood is actual DHT cream, probably. Like, actually apply.
Where's my notebook? Gordon goes up from looking like Mr. Olympia to Mr. HIV. I've heard some rumors that Trenbolone can probably make you a bit bi-curious.
Yeah, it seems to be the case.
All right, we're here with Derek, More Plates, More Dates, to announce the Marek Health sponsorship. So this is more of a health intervention, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I've heard you've got some pretty concerning health issues potentially.
Potentially.
Or at least maybe it was.
Maybe it was, yeah.
Blood pressure and stuff like that.
And I guess lifestyle decisions as well, I'd probably say. But
yeah.
I guess we could start with the blood pressure. My blood pressure is pretty high. It was actually, you guys recommended me to donate blood. And when I went to the donation center, my iron levels were so high, they were like, your blood's no good here. Yeah. Is that a common thing?
For guys on anabolics in general, it could be more so. It's more atypical for somebody who's natural. And that's kind of where a therapeutic phlebotomy might be arranged, whereby it's not even to donate the blood, but it's to just get it out of you, and then they don't actually do anything with it. So yeah, for guys on gear, it's pretty common, I would say. Pretty
common. I think I was 0.1 above. I think she was the cutoff was 20, and I was 20.
That's so annoying when you make a trip there too.
20.1. I was like, can't we just?
One time I got rejected for being too cold.
Body temperature.
Yeah, I was walking in from outside, and I guess I hadn't warmed up yet. It was in the middle of winter here in Vancouver, and they were like, yeah, we can't legally accept you. And I was like, Jesus Christ. So gotta go home now, reschedule.
Really? How often do you, so you donate?
I don't do phlebotomy like I used to when I used to push the dosages harder. So for me, I just kind of maintain baseline hormone levels, and I don't really have any aberrations in blood work that require me to excessively have to, strip blood. So fortunately for me, I don't have to deal with it anymore, but I used to do it, I don't know, biannually, depending.
How much of that is diet based? Because my iron levels were super high. Is that diet, something to do with my diet as well?
Yeah, but it's also, the gear itself increases the production of red blood cells, enhances erythropoiesis, which incorporates iron metabolism and alters, it can elevate your iron status just via the demand and burden to actually produce those red blood cells as well. But it is diet related partially, but typically when you see abnormal elevations, I don't know what your baseline blood work is, so it's kind of hard to say what your genetics were prior with the same diet and lifestyle and everything, but yeah, the gear definitely adds a big component to it that could take you from looking just high normal to damn dude, you're super levels.
Super levels, yeah. I feel like you can tell when someone gets on gear in jiu-jitsu, because when I watch them train, they suddenly turn a very sharp color of red.
Oh.
I think that would be to do with that as well, right?
It could be, yeah. Increased blood pressure, you could actually see visual cues of it, or guys getting nosebleeds in the gym more often than they used to. If it's not normal to get that typically.
Unless you have a big partying weekend, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but some dudes, it's pretty common among powerlifters, especially, and really big bodybuilders, to just be in the squat rack and start bleeding mid-set.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's wild. That sounds like something Gabi Garcia would probably do.
What's her stick?
I've asked her. She's trying to tell me right now she's natural, which I don't believe.
Why would she be if she's competing against you? Untested in a couple of weeks.
We should blood test her to really see what she's taken before.
We can do that, Marek Health.
I'm curious. Not, unfortunately for her, not bi-curious, but I'm interested. Yeah, we actually did. I've always wanted to test the athletes, because people always assume every jiu-jitsu guy is on steroids. I think probably most of them are.
That'd be interesting if you did the testing just for the bragging rights. Because you could say, I won this, against a bunch of enhanced people while I'm clean. But, how many people would just clean out for the show specifically, right?
Sure.
If you did randomized testing throughout, maybe next year if it goes really well, we could coordinate that. That'd be cool.
To plan it, yeah. Because you did test Nicky Rudd. You gave him the randomized testing.
That was kind of like a one-off, because I had never talked to the guy in my life, and I just saw this back and forth transpiring online, and I knew at least for a snapshot in time of somebody who has no idea they would otherwise be, told on a whim, hey dude, if you wanna, give some credence to your likelihood of being natty, if you just go on a whim in the next 24 hours, there's no way you could have planned for this. Go donate blood or go get your blood taken and do a urine analysis and we'll check what's up. And he was into it, so.
And he passed, right?
Were you surprised?
I always say I wish he wasn't natural because I have to accept that even my genetics on steroids.
Right?
Yeah.
You almost hoped he was lying.
Yeah.
You see him patch, you're like, fuck this guy.
But then I see him and his brother. His brother looks the same, like just jacked out of their minds. But I think Gordon still firmly believes that he's taking stuff.
Like it would be psychopath level planning to have figured his way around. Like it was only one test, so it is that snapshot in time, but just the circumstances that led to it, like there was no bias on my end as to if it was or wasn't. I just saw it transpire and I was like, this would be cool content. And if this guy's down, great. And if he's not, it just looks kind of bad. So, and yeah, within 24 hours. And he got supervised too. I sent Zach Tellender to accompany him to make sure he didn't cheat.
To make sure it was his blood, hey. Yeah. I think that actually ended up not saving his life, but didn't he have some health markers there that was...
I don't recall exactly what it was, but it was significant enough that it was a red flag to change either something dramatic in his lifestyle. Well, probably, yeah, like the way he was handling his diet, but also some people just genetically, unfortunately, the leading cause of death is cardiovascular disease. Even in naturals, this isn't just like, oh, I'm natural, so I'm fine. Like most people will die from heart disease, and oftentimes it goes completely overlooked through unaddressed high blood pressure, but also atherogenic burden. So like through your blood work, you would see high apolipoprotein B or LDL, people are more familiar with.
That's what it was, right?
Yeah, I think he had like really high lipids, if I recall correctly.
So Gordon actually saved his life. You saved his life too.
Maybe. Because catching that stuff early is actually pretty important because you don't actually end up with, a significant enough amount of plaque in your arteries to cause an issue until you're, well into your 50s, 60s typically. So for him in his 20s catching it now, he can get well ahead of it. So a lot of people don't realize it's happening though, even from teenagehood, they're stacking plaque.
Does taking tests mess with your cholesterol levels? Like,
for sure.
Oh, really? Yeah. So maybe Nicky Rosaviti after all.
It would. That would definitely bowl in favor of working against him if he was to prove his status or whatever. But there are some markers that are like irrefutable. Like, and I've seen tons of naturals who have mangled-looking lipids that are even worse than some bodybuilders. So it kind of depends on the person.
I think he was eating red meat every meal.
Yeah, didn't he say he was like full-blown carnivore diet essentially with like...
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He'll see a guy go on Rogan and throw out a diet suggestion and he'll be like all in on it,
Yeah, and there's nuance, by the way. It's not just like, oh, I have high LDL equals heart disease. There's absolutely nuance, family history to be considered, et cetera. But in general, if there's red flags in that area of your labs, like you should be at least looking deeper into it to figure out what you should do next and if you need to pivot.
I'm trying to remember how bad mine was.
Yours, I took a skim earlier today. I only had like a short amount of time to look, but it was like low HDL, not horrendously, but it was low. And then your ApoB was slightly elevated, which is like the primary marker you would look to for atherogenic burden. I think Nicky Rod actually had like a genetic element of his lipids though too, his Lp(a), which is like another highly atherogenic, meaning like propensity to causing plaque buildup in the arteries. This is a marker, Lp(a), that doesn't change with diet and lifestyle. So regardless if you're natty, enhanced, if you're have a good diet, bad diet, like this number almost does not change that dramatically to a point that you could fix it naturally. So with him, I think I recall his was very elevated, or at least significantly enough so that it was like, okay, you have a genetic outlying extra risk factor. You don't have that, fortunately, but you have the classic steroid-induced dyslipidemia.
All right. Yeah, I've taken no safety precautions in my steroid use. I think back in the day when I was hitting it, first cycle was 0.5 gram a week of test C for 6 months straight. I
was going to say that's pretty typical, and they said 6 months. So
yeah, we pushed it to the limit there, and then came off with PCT. I think I did both what is it, clomiphene, and then the other one as well.
Blvd.
But yeah, but coming off was that was an emotional time. That encouraged me.
Especially if you're on it for 6 months, your brain is used to that level of testosterone.
That's pretty high, right, for a first cycle for that long?
Yeah, like a typical newbie cycle, at least back in when I first learned about this, 500 milligrams, half a gram is pretty, it's typical. I would argue it's probably a little bit high for somebody that's brand new that could otherwise get their feet a bit wet with a slightly lower dose, but the dosage itself wasn't crazy. It was more, I guess, the duration and then maybe the way you went about coming off, because the typical like classic PCT regimen is really outdated and not really designed to feel great in that transition process, especially if you're, I don't know if you were back on right after the PCT kind of thing or took some time off. Like, what was the transition?
Oh yeah, so I did 6 months straight, and then I came off because actually 6 months of that dose, I started to feel not that healthy. So I did the PCT, then felt emotionally unhealthy. Then I competed in ADCC, and then I entered a tournament that was an open weight tournament, and my weight had dropped back down. So what I did was I was in San Diego, and I just crossed the border into Mexico, went to the pharmacy there, was like, I better get back on, bought some tests, was like, do you guys have a bathroom? Went into their bathroom, slammed it into the quad. I think that would have been 2 mils into the quad, and that's how I started the cycle again. That I never really came off since that point in 2017, just varying dosages, because the PCT did not feel good.
Yeah, it's I think becoming more widely understood that if you're gonna be somebody who's taking this stuff long term for competitive purposes or in like a bodybuilding aspect, in general, the old like cycling dogma doesn't really work the best sustainably. Like if you were to do one course for a specific thing and you had no intention of going back on again in the near future, okay, the cycle off might make sense with a more well thought out and modern PCT protocol, but like the transition in general for guys who are going on, crashing themselves, coming off, trying to recover, and then right when they recover and their blood work looks okay, they then jump back on, and going back and forth is arguably worse than just staying on baseline replacement.
I feel like it's not good for people's mental health that do those like cycle on and off. Like it's up,
it's like
down, up.
Yeah, and even like the pressure on your heart, your blood pressure wildly fluctuating all the time. And yeah, the level of androgens that you get used to just like feel normal, because you acclimate at some point. Like I know most people, I'm sure you can probably attest to this too, when you first start, you feel the like insane libido push, everything's kind of like new, and your brain is stimulated to a level it has not experienced. But then after a couple of months, you sort of acclimate to it and it becomes your new normal. You don't really feel like as discernibly different as you did at the start. Like the ravenous libido and stuff, it's not as insane after you get really deep into this lifestyle. But when you pull that stuff out, like you've been used to that level of hormone in your brain for, years maybe, depending on the person, and to just like deprive yourself to literally like castrate levels just like that, yeah, it's not favorable typically.
Yeah, not healthy. Actually, I won't say his name, but someone I used to train with, his testosterone doctor was just someone that used to sleep with bodybuilders, and that's where this person got their knowledge from. And I remember the person in question had some health problems at the time, and doctors were asking them, what are you taking? Like, what's your stack?
Okay, so let me get this straight. So this lady is sleeping with bodybuilders and learning about how hormones work indirectly while fucking these guys, basically.
Yeah,
it's like, how do you take it? Oh, I'm gonna, take that knowledge and then.
She's a recipient of testosterone from these guys as well.
Yeah.
But that's where they went to Bro Science University, and when this person that they were giving testosterone to started to have health problems, the doctors were like, what's he taking at what dosages? She was basically like, I look at him every day and I know what he needs.
Oh, wow. That's difficult to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was wild, but I still don't know exactly what they were taking, but like, obviously some people have busted out some Tren in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably not a good one for jiu-jitsu, right?
No, it seems to have like an odd side effect that inhibits your cardiovascular endurance. Like some people, when they take it, they note that, especially in bodybuilding prep, you have to increase your cardio in order to lose more fat to get stage ready. they find in general there's like almost a dose-dependent inhibition of cardiovascular endurance capacity while you're using it, and then they'll use drugs like cardarine to offset it and other things that could help them maintain the volume they need to do the output of cardiovascular work. But it's pretty counterintuitive for a BJJ athlete, in my opinion, for most people. It depends on the dosage, of course, how you respond, because some people, drugs at the end of the day, everyone responds differently. You might have a guy who's exceptionally well responding to X compound, and then another guy gets sick and can't even eat his meals every day when he takes it. So depends on the person to some extent, but in general, I would say Tren is kind of like, I don't know, I think it's more of like a bodybuilding, powerlifter-esque drug than a BJJ ideal drug.
I've heard some rumors that Trenbolone can probably make you a bit bi-curious.
Yeah, it seems to be the case.
That's real.
Well, it's not like it's documented in actual literature, but it's like anecdotally, we've seen enough times now that bodybuilders, and again, you could argue a bunch of different things that contribute to this, but in general, you see almost like a skewing, and this isn't in everyone, because I know these clips end up getting taken, and I've even been guilty of this, of course, too, saying like, Tren made this guy gay, or like whatever. You've seen the Reddit stories. But in general, there's like a spectrum of sexuality where it's like you're totally straight or you're totally gay, and then sort of like there's this in between. And often you see kind of deviation in sexual appetite for things that are not traditionally what your normal is, and whether this starts with escalating levels of like hardcore pornography, which then leads to, you know, the thing you need now to get the dopamine hit is this in real life or something. Like you just see this kind of transpire in the bodybuilding world, powerlifting world, and it's not uncommon to see, you know, bodybuilders make a trip to Thailand. And
so what I'm hearing is basically this would be advantageous for my match against Gabi Garcia.
Maybe, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Honestly, it just sounds to me, this anecdotal evidence is a bunch of guys that went to Thailand, got busted, and needed a good excuse.
That could be possible too.
But
yeah, like in general, it's the argument is, well, they were already like that, and this sort of just like uncovered it. But even if that is the case, at the end of the day, you weren't behaving like that previously. So it's kind of like however you want to interpret the anecdote, that's fine. But it's not normal that you watch hentai like 6 times a day now. You know,
you tell that to my cameraman. I mean, maybe it just gave them the confidence to pursue their real dreams, but
maybe. Tren,
I've never tried Tren. Maybe it's out of the fear of those stories, but I guess the craziest one I've tried was halo testing.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the strongest ones, right?
Yeah, like it depends what you're using it for and what the dosage you're using is.
I just heard it made your dick bigger.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like hypothetically, if you had better blood flow and libido or sensitivity, like there are certain things you could drive that I could see that maybe happening, but it's more of like it's not like a unique effect to the drug that I am familiar with or I think is actually.
So I've been lied to.
Maybe, I don't know. Like the only thing that could actually make your dick bigger in adulthood is actual DHT cream, probably, like actually applied.
Where's my notebook?
Well, like even so, the only way it would work to any meaningful extent probably is if you had some level of lack of maturation in adolescence when you were exposed to that surge of hormones to begin with, because that's, in general, if you had peaked testosterone and DHT in teenage years, you would have full maturation to your potential in general. And maybe you could eke out a bit more, you know, it's not like there's literature again, but I mean, like halo testing is actually more, I would argue, like one of the least conducive, because it's not, the way it's designed is to be less viralizing and masculinizing than DHT, which is like the primary male hormone. So it's almost like you're taking this compound that is good for muscle and maybe psychoactive effects in the gym or the ring, but it's not necessarily designed to be growing male secondary sexual characteristics and developing them. So I would be skeptical that actually happens.
So again, Gabi Garcia lied to me again about reaching my potential. Nah, really, I tried that one. That one just made me sweat a lot.
Oh, really?
At training, yeah. Whatever it was doing. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't some.
Yeah, it's tough to know sometimes too if you even have what you think you have. Yeah. Some people, they think they're taking Anavar, and then, their girlfriend who's on it ends up getting, clit doubles in size, and
Really?
yeah, their voice gets, way deeper. And it could still be Anavar, depending on the dose used and the duration, but oftentimes people are getting fake drugs.
Anavar is the number one oral steroid that women take, right? Least amount of side effects for women?
Don't know if I would go far as to say generally the least side effects, but it's definitely one of the most tolerated and definitely the most widely utilized, with the perception that it's female safe, but it's still not immune to the male secondary sexual characteristic development stuff. So while it's better than testosterone and it's better than a lot of the other anabolics, it's certainly not totally safe. Like if you put a chick on it for, a few months even at, 10 or higher milligrams, it's kind of hit or miss as to if she might have, hoarseness of the voice, like you don't know for sure. I wouldn't be able to say with certainty, like, oh yeah, this is totally safe.
So it would be a good one to sabotage your girlfriend if you thought your relationship was coming to an end, right? Send her out into the world in a more masculine way.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
Lots of chicks from Brazil take Anavar. Seems like a common thread down there. Brazil.
I think there are certain drugs that have just like a reputation for this is the thing that makes, like fitness model physiques or something. So girls will take things like Anavar, clenbuterol. I think those are the most popular typically. They'll take thyroid drugs without really knowing if they need them or what it does. So oftentimes there's not really rhyme or reason. Like even as you're talking about like, oh yeah, I took Halo and I did this. It doesn't sound like you have a ton of reason why, but you're like a top athlete in your sport. So it's like, it just goes to show how sometimes little goes into the thought process almost.
You roll the dice. Say, clenbuterol in Australia is pretty popular, but only for guys getting shredded to go to music festivals and just walk around shirtless.
That drug is interesting. It is good for getting leaner, but it also has like an anti-muscle, it has a muscle preservation kind of effect, and that's why it's solid for women in that it doesn't viralize them. Like it's not a steroid, it doesn't cause any masculinization. At a really low dose, it actually, for men, won't really do a lot, but for women who have like a much lower threshold for what gets them like supra level results, could actually help them build muscle. And some girls who are more advanced will use like 20 micrograms of Clen like for weeks or months even.
How do you take Clen? Is that an oral or an injectable?
Oral, and sometimes it comes in tablets, sometimes it comes in liquid. Like there was this, I forget what it was called. It was like the Venti Plumen pump or something that was made for, I forget which animal, but people would order this on veterinary sites and they would pump it into their mouths in liquid format.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was like the pharma vet grade stuff.
I wish I could remember the name. I remember for one of the tournaments, there was some vet drug that was meant to be good for cardio that I started pumping some white cream-like substance. I should find
If you said it, I would probably know, but off the top of my head,
I should try and remember the name of this one. I had to order it from veterinary clinics. It was a white, creamy substance. Could have been anything, honestly.
So what happened? Anything when you used it?
Not that I was aware of, A lot of things I've taken, I guess, didn't notice. Like, because the first time you take a cycler test, you feel superhuman. And you're always thinking that that's going to come again, but obviously it never comes again. But I've tried some weird things like that on the off chance. I tried cardarine for cardio increase, but it's in a jiu-jitsu setting, it's kind of hard to measure how good your cardio is doing. It kind of depends on who you're training with. I guess in regular athletic sports, it's easier to measure.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how far you take the training to like gassing out level, but I would assume in actual competition it would become more apparent as to if it's making a difference, but obviously you can't just test that on a whim every week kind of thing. But,
hard to measure.
I don't know, like 10 to 20 milligrams of cardarine, all but I wouldn't say it's like safe. It seems pretty damn effective.
Why did people say that one caused cancer? It was because of some study that's at higher doses, right?
Yeah, in rats, there was a study that showed every dose of cardarine tested caused cancer. So it's kind of like, it's not even just at a high dose it did.
Oh, really?
It was a dose that was too close to the human equivalent dose to be comfortable with its use, probably.
So they shut down studying it?
Yeah, seemingly. Now that same company is still making different variants of that kind of a drug in the background, just doesn't get as much attention for whatever reason. I think it's mostly because the underground world has access to this abandoned one that they've really hyped up to be like the one you want to use. Oftentimes the compounds that actually get the most attention aren't necessarily the best. It's just the one that's sold illegally the most. As dumb as that is.
Good marketing campaign.
Yeah, yeah. Because a lot of the drugs you'll find that are being heavily promoted too are like, this was abandoned by a pharmaceutical company because it failed and it wasn't worth pursuing, but because it's not patented and they don't care about it, now we can illegally sell it without scrutiny from that company chasing us to like get rid of it. And cartering is good by the way. Like if you look at the human literature, it looks really promising. And the anecdotes of its use, like it works very well for endurance, but it's certainly not the best drug in that class of compound, I would say.
For endurance, what would be the best substance you could take for endurance purposes?
Probably EPO.
EPO?
Yeah.
I tried to get my hands on that. That's hard to get your hands on.
Yeah.
That one's like a scary one though, right? Like I hear the cyclists talk about having to maintain that exercise so their blood doesn't thicken up, right?
Yeah, and especially if you're on steroids too, like the extra coagulability of the blood, like it's more prone to clotting as is, and then you also have the heightened, like you already have increased erythropoiesis naturally via the steroids you're using, so there is like a level of almost taking like mini EPO essentially when you're on gear. So that if you add EPO on top of that, especially with your blood work, for example, like that would be sketch. Yeah.
It'd be dangerous for me.
Yeah, like where you're at right now, for sure.
It's already concerning. How do you take EPO? Because I remember someone was telling me you don't actually have to take that many dosages of it for it to be effective over a long time.
Yeah, it's as far as like administration, it would be subcutaneous typically, and then once it's one of the drugs that you can take really far out from the competition because the actual lifespan of a red blood cell, people don't realize, like you can maintain that oxygen carrying capacity for months after you've kind of like built up that base. So it's really easy to get around competition, even tested when using it. But yeah, it's just like basically it's a dedicated build-up period to hit your target hematocrit, whatever it may be, depending on sport, how rigorously tested you are, how close you're willing to skirt the boundaries, or if you're not tested, how willing you are to almost like
how brave, yeah.
Yeah. But so, you know, the duration of how and where you start will depend on how long you have to use it too. But yeah, it's not something you need to sustain for like, you know, years to get continuous results. Like steroids to build muscle, you need to be on them. You can't just take one course and end up looking like a Mr. Olympia, obviously. It would be like years of being on shit with perfect diet on at the same time. Whereas EPO is like once you build up the base, you could either maintain with like a lower dose, or you could just pull it entirely and kind of cruise as it comes back down.
And that compared to cartering would be like astronomically more effective?
I think it depends on the person's baseline, like I said, because if you were somebody who naturally had high, you know, red blood cell production, everything was solid based on blood work metrics that we could discern, cartering might be more effective for you. Because you might have minimal leeway as is, especially if you're a BJJ athlete on gear. Like you might not be able to push that vector really at all to where cartering's like way more advantageous to be using.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wish more athletes, like obviously like I try to tell people what I'm on and they look at my appearance and doubt that I'm on anything at all. But I wish more of the athletes would be open about what they do take, just so that.
It's probably like for you, I'm assuming your training style is more conducive to your sport than trying to look like a bodybuilder though.
For
so
sure,
like,
yeah.
Presumably that's a large component of it.
That's what I tell myself anyway.
I mean, you have guys like Nicky who look like fucking bodybuilders essentially.
Yeah, looks jacked. Gordon looks jacked. Gordon goes up from looking like Mr. Olympia to Mr. HIV every few months. Depends on
Has he
the
sorted his gut health stuff yet?
Who knows? That it's ongoing. I don't know like what it is. You know, I don't think anyone really. He reckons he took too much antibiotics and it just killed
Isn't that
him.
wild? I like much as I can fuck you up.
Yeah, because we get staph all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. It's horrible. But yeah, antibiotics obviously pretty rough on the gut. What do you think of like when people talk about their gut microbiome and stuff? Because like I tune out when I get that deep into.
Yeah, well that's the problem with that stuff is it's so misunderstood and not really good literature on it that a lot of people when they speak as authorities or experts oftentimes you wouldn't even be able to say for certain they are wrong or right. So if they speak very confidently and articulately, it's like, okay, well, this guy knows his shit. But, you know, it's not something you could point to literature. For example, like Gordon, he has access to the greatest minds in, at least, you know, tangential to BJJ. I don't know how high up it goes in terms of who he's speaking to, but presumably he has access to pretty rigorously vetted experts in the field and has been dealing with this for years. It's not like it's a new thing. And the fact that it's still unresolved, or at least last I heard, shows how complicated this is in itself. So, you know, when people start talking about it, I think it's absolutely important that you see him getting sidelined into not even be able to compete. And I can just imagine how much it pisses him off when everyone's like, oh, you know, you have a tummy ache again, bro, or whatever. He's probably like, fuck you guys.
I enjoy it, to be honest.
But yeah, like, I'm sure if it was well understood, that would have been sorted years ago, probably.
Could oral steroids contribute to having stomach problems?
For sure. I don't think it's the reason why he has it, but I mean, it definitely doesn't help.
Yeah.
And in general, I guess it depends on what you're trying to achieve with the orals, because they have their place, but typically, if you're trying to build muscle, they're not really great and conducive for especially even regulating appetite. Often it will be harder to get your food down, and also even nutrient assimilation might be impaired to some extent. It's more useful for like acute aggression or psychoactive effects, again, in competition. So like Halo, for example, I'm sure on the like week leading up to a match, loading up on Halo could be pretty useful, for example.
For your aggression?
Yeah.
So we're recommending Halo and Tren for Gabi Garcia.
Yeah, what are you gonna take going into it? Like, I guess are you kind of just cruising in and it's more of like for like recreation kind of, or are you taking this really seriously?
I mean, I'm gonna take a pretty strong dose of Cialis on the day, I'd imagine. Help me fucking finish the job. But yeah, no, I mean, right now I was doing 200 milligrams of testosterone a week. I tell people that's a TRT range, but that's still a pretty strong dose, right?
Are you still on 200 right now?
Still on 200 right now, yeah.
Okay, so like for example, on your blood work I saw, I think your total test was like 1350 or something, and your free was like 40 something. So yeah, like Unnatural would never produce that level almost ever, unless you had, like my immediate thought, if you were Unnatural with those levels, would be, let me check your pituitary gland for like a tumor or something.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's still probably lower than Gabi's, to be honest.
Maybe, yeah. What's her stats? She's like six what?
Well, I mean, I'll tell the truth now. I lie about her stats a lot. So does she, I would imagine, weight-wise, but she is 6'2", and her weight, if I had to guess, fuck, she'd be angry about this, I'd have to say, what do we reckon?
She said 220.
She lied, but what do you reckon? 245 maybe? Yeah, 245, 60.
So she would be mad in which direction? Like if you underguessed it or if you overshot it?
Well, I think...
Because it's like typically a girl, if you say, oh, you weigh more than she weighs, they would be annoyed. But like for somebody whose goal is to be...
I mean, deep down in there's a woman in there somewhere. So I think she wants to lower the weight, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, so... There's really not a massive size discrepancy in the match.
Oh, yeah.
I'm probably 205, she's two. Actually, nah, let's say she got 40 pounds on me.
Yeah, what do you predict the match will go like?
Well, I mean, we have a wager in this match. I don't know if you're aware of it.
No, explain.
So obviously Gabi, being a very, very attractive woman, has a lot of male suitors, as we told you off the air, and we can't corroborate on the air. She's taken down a few UFC champions in her time, but she has... Yeah, she fights in the absolute division. She has said that if I can footlock her, we will collaborate on OnlyFans.
Oh my God.
And if she can win the match, I have to give her $1 million.
Holy shit, okay.
But I think the OnlyFans wager would make more than $1 million, just out of the curiosity. You know, you'd have the whole Tren market, pretty big. That'd be interested.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's a very serious wager for the match. Could lose $1 million to her.
Look, what is the pool for the whole thing again? Because I thought, last I checked, I'm sort of in the loop, but obviously not enough to know that that's how much is at stake for this one match.
Well, that's just my personal commitment.
Oh, that's you?
Yeah,
Holy
yeah,
shit.
That's the confidence.
Damn.
I had to put something on the line in
Yeah.
hopes of securing the OnlyFans collaboration.
What is the?
The tournament though, 2 16-man divisions, under 80 kilos, over 80 kilos, and the winner of each gets $1 million.
Damn, dude.
So for an average jiu-jitsu tournament for like ADCC, which is kind of like the Olympics, it's 10K to win a 16-man division. So it's just, and those guys in that are willing to take all the steroids in the world, willing to not let all their limbs break. So like, God knows what these guys are taking for a chance at $1 million.
How many people have defected from ADCC to this?
So because we only did 2 divisions, I would say in the under 80 kilo division, almost every single one of those guys is from ADCC. In the over 80 kilo division, I would say 60%. But what ADCC did to convince these guys to stay, or at least the organizer, instead of raising the 10K prize money, he just secured them secret show money deals that allegedly are far greater than the prize money. So say if I said, hey, come to CJI, that guy goes to Mo, and Mo will offer him, here's 25 to 100K, we need you to stay.
Yeah.
So you get huge show money.
Yeah.
But then if you go to and win the tournament, it's just an extra 10K. It seems like,
So the incentive to actually perform is
It's
evidently not there.
yeah, it's now,
It's
now
just to
lower.
like, don't leave.
Yeah, don't leave. And then it sounds like an unhealthy relationship, but then also like, yeah, like you said, like the incentive to win it. Like you get 100K to show up. Who gives a fuck about the 10K?
Yeah. Yeah, that's brutal.
You have to kill 4 guys. And then actually we got Mackenzie Dern versus Fionn Davies. It's like the original, Mackenzie's like, was the original probably pound for pound women's champion back in like 2015. She's now in the UFC and she faces Fionn Davies, who's now like probably pound for pound the best women's athlete today. So we got them in a super fight. But Mackenzie fights in the UFC tonight. Tomorrow, and the tournament is in 2 weeks. So I'm very concerned that she gets hurt. So I'm like, please, it'd be hard to find a replacement on the level of Mackenzie Dern.
Huh. Who's she facing tonight?
I should know that for sure.
Because I'm thinking if I saw that matchup, that girl she's facing, I think lives around here. Because I remember I used to work with her at like a supplement store.
Is she good?
I don't know. I just recognized her. I was like, oh shit, I know that chick.
Oh, really? Well, fingers crossed Canada loses tonight. No, but those are all the matchups we had.
Dude, but speaking of Vancouver, what is the thing happening here? You like posted something about there's a ADCC sponsored tournament or something?
No, all right. So it's a long story actually. So there's the ADCC. It's a grappling event started by Sheikh Tanoon out of Abu Dhabi. He handed it off, and there's the organizer, Mo Jassim. He runs the whole thing. But obviously, there's the face, and then there's the guy that actually runs the events.
Yeah.
There's this character, Seth Daniels. He looks like he should be over on Hastings Street, this guy. But Seth Daniels, he runs everything. He was very upset with my tournament because it goes against him running ADCC. So he threatened to kill me. And then I posted that online as a bit of a laugh because you can't take the guy very seriously. And he told me he got fired. But then it turned out he didn't get fired. So ADCC still hired him, Mo still hired him, Flow Grappling still work with his show. And he has this show called Fight to Win. It's like a grappling event that travels around everywhere. And I didn't know it was here, but it's in Vancouver.
It's like a weird
Saturday.
coincidence.
Yeah.
Are you going?
So I'm just messing
Or were you
with
just
him.
like fucking with
I actually fly out before the event, but I'm just
okay.
fucking with him. That like I'm like, hey, I'm coming to see you. I'm coming to see you. You didn't get fired, but he didn't bite back. He didn't respond to me, unfortunately. But he's in town at the same time.
So how did he threaten to kill you? Like this is over.
Well, this is the genius of the man himself that he actually thought it was like 4 a.m. He lives in Denver, Colorado, and it was 4 a.m. He's obviously probably been on the beers all night, and he sent me a message. He's like, hey, if you post anything about me on the internet, I will kill you. So then that gave me a reason to actually post about it. And then just straight up threatened to kill me. But obviously his assassins haven't succeeded. All their checks bounced, I don't know. But yeah, he's still apparently running the ADCC event because they couldn't probably do it without him. It'd be hard to replace the organizer this short notice. So he's just banned from attending, but he's still coordinating everything. So I think you basically can't get fired. That's a good message for all the staff that work for Mo Jassim. You cannot get fired. Do whatever you want if you have any value to the company at all.
Damn. So what is the overall perception of your, like this tournament in general? Is it overwhelmingly positive, or is it kind of like the backlash is kind of evening it out, or what does it kind of look like overall?
I mean, overwhelmingly positive because we're getting the guys paid. Basically, I had a friend who's got a fair bit of cash, and it was his suggestion. He basically heard about the feud where I was just saying, guys, if you can sell 15,000 tickets, if you can sell the streaming rights to a big platform, you're pulling in millions there. You basically should be able to pay the athletes more money. I actually went on Rogan, and Rogan is a sponsor of ADCC, and he supported ADCC for a long time. Privately, I believe he has a sponsorship deal where he just promotes it for free, but we were kind of having a back and forth where like I put my event the same weekend to make the athletes choose. And he was like, but why would you do that? He's like, do it another weekend. And I'm like, but then ADCC is not really affected in any negative way. You know, it'd be like having a business and your staff decided to go on strike after work hours. You know, it doesn't really achieve much.
Yeah.
So we kind of went back and forth on that. And it's funny because he just posted about the Olympics. And he's been like, look at all the stage of the Olympics, look how much the Olympics is growing, but the athletes don't get paid. And I'm like, oh.
Just like exactly
now,
what this is.
Yeah, I'm like, now we see eye to eye on it. But yeah, that's basically it. It's overwhelmingly positive because it's like, we got the funding. It's always good when you're spending someone else's money. We've got the athletes paid, and the profit, the proceeds of the ticket sales go towards charity. So it's kind of like, it's hard for them to attack us on this. The only reason some people are angry is if they can't afford tickets.
Yeah.
Like if they've already bought tickets to ADCC and they can't afford to buy tickets to the other shows, they're kind of a bit annoyed. The athletes that have remained in ADCC are annoyed, or will be if they win it this year, because every arsehole is going to be like, oh yeah, but it was the CJI year, you know. So it's like
they're not allowed to co-compete.
It'd be hard to do both.
Okay,
Our
like
schedules,
literally simultaneously.
yeah. So it's like we acted as if it was going to be exact same days, but we basically made it so you could see both events.
Right,
we
right.
just built a campaign of like, oh fuck you, we're doing it the same day to cause a bit of controversy, which ultimately is good for the sport because it's like a bit of beef.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
A bit of beef's always exciting, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just Gordon going back and forth with people on Instagram anymore. It's like an
No, he's
actual-
quiet now. He's quiet.
Oh, is it?
No public attacks from him anymore, unfortunately. We've lost a bit of material there. But I used to go back and forth with some of those guys, but now, yeah. The support.
Is he competing?
He's competing. He's doing a super fight on Saturday. This is the wild thing. ADCC is like the Olympics, right? So they'll do their division. They'll do an open weight or an absolute. And the open weight champion enters a match, which is a super fight. So every 2 years, you have the divisions, the open weight, and a super fight. And it'll be a super fight champion facing the previous event's open weight champion. Like the open weight gold will put you into another class. Every time they've done an event, it's always been the same way. One super fight, maybe a Legends, like an old school guy's super fight. But this year, because Gordon basically calls the shots, so he's decided he will just give himself another super fight on the Saturday, and they'll count it as an official medal. So his medal tally will rise if he wins the super fight. And his super fight opponent's good, he's got history with him, but his super fight opponent hasn't medaled at an ADCC event since like 2017. So it's like they've kind of just manufactured a super fight to go on the Saturday to compete against our show, but we'll give Gordon Ryan bragging rights if he wins his 2 super fights to say he's now he's got the most medals of any ADCC champ. So in terms of like just poking fun at the event, they kind of just let the guy do whatever he wants.
Hypothetically, who would be the most challenging matchup for him?
Nicky Rod, for sure. If him and Nicky Rod were to have a match, I think that would be the toughest opponent for Gordon. Or like there's another guy, Mason Fowler. Nicky Rod just beat him though. We had Mason in our tournament. He just got injured, some back injury, so he's out, unfortunately. And then probably next would be Gordon's teammate, Nicholas Marigali.
Yeah.
But obviously teammates won't face off. Hopefully one day they have a feud and separate and we get to hype that match up. But for now, he's just
Isn't that dude way bigger? Like different weight class even? Or is
Marigali.
Yeah.
I think he walks around 230, 235, so probably pretty similar size.
Okay. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
But he's like I would say naturally walks around at that weight, whereas Gordon, at probably a younger age, was quite a bit.
Yeah.
He ballooned up a bit, you know, he gained, mysteriously gained that. No, he gained that weight. So they'd be the same size now, I'd imagine.
Yeah, okay.
But Miragali would be the favorite to win the open weight of the ADCC, which would set them up to face off in 2026. But they probably wouldn't face each other.
Damn.
There's a lot of history with the ADCC.
So do you envision you guys ever clashing with Gordon Ryan again, given that you're segregated now? Like, what if your event does really well, ADCC is separate? Like, what happens in the future, do you think?
Oh, for sure. We'd love to set it up though, but it's like in a position where like he would see taking on one of our guys from the B team as kind of he's giving us a boost. You know what I mean? Like he's like, oh, we'll not face these guys because it's gonna help their career just by having the opportunity. So I think publicly stated he wouldn't face Nicky Rod. He's already beaten me 3 times, but nobody beats me 4 times, especially with the assistance of the Marek Health supplements. I think we take him out, but. Yeah, I would do it for the right price, for sure. It'd be a fun one. His teammate Miragali, I beat at the last ADCC, and I basically remind him of that as often as possible. And we tried to set that match up, but the money wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? I was like, do I bask in that victory for longer? What's the dollar value on that versus a rematch? And it would have to be more money. But he's a fair bit bigger than me, so it's like he walks at 230. At 230, Gabi Garcia, I'll take that any day. 230 Miragali, we have to put a fair bit of prep into it.
Right. Do you still train the way you used to for? Like,
definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. I think I've like the amount of traveling I've done.
It's probably hard when you're promoting this thing, especially.
Yeah, the promotion aspect is very, very draining. Like talking to every athlete nonstop. You know what I mean? Like it's like herding cats, talking to these people. You know, like you're sending them contracts. They can't. That's the longest thing they've read in their entire life. It's been a very difficult prospect. Sending Gabi Garcia a contract, I didn't know what language to send it in, but we got her to sign the contract nonetheless. That was a hard one. That was a hard one. I'll probably need therapy for the conversations I've had with her to get this job done. And ultimately, probably after the match, a lot of therapy too.
What does an OnlyFans collaboration look like with Gabi Garcia?
I mean, I would imagine something sexual, you know?
Yeah, like, I would assume that, you know, I don't.
I mean, yeah, it'd be a short video for sure, but we'd get the job done. Probably a few beers before that one, a few proper 12s I'd pump down. But yeah, it'd be for scientific purposes. But honestly, I think Tren alone could push me over the edge where we wouldn't need any Cialis for that. Like, sounds of it.
Yeah, you never know.
The amount of guys that are into Gabi, it's like she should be selling real estate because she is making herself more appealing by the minute just by the guys that she tells me she's conquered. And I'm like, if these greats have taken it down, I'm interested. Yeah. She must have something going on in the bedroom.
Oh, geez. So the event is 2 weeks from now, right?
Yeah, what's the date today? Yeah, basically August 16th, 17th. So the media tour ends and we'll be over there in Vegas getting everything done. The actual last funny story about the event is, again, about Gordon Ryan, but Gordon Ryan gave away his personal car, which was unfortunately a Mazda Miata. He gave away this car at the last ADCC to someone that bought his book. He wrote a book, shockingly enough, and this guy won the car, and he reached out to me leading up to our event, and he's like, would you have any need to have Gordon Ryan's car? So now I'm in possession of Gordon Ryan's Miata, and we're going to...
Did he sell it to you? Or
yeah, we bought it off him, and we're like, guys, this is an added incentive. If you donate to the non-profit or you buy a ticket, one of you gets to win his car.
Oh my God, dude.
So those things, I mean, people think I come up with it, but those things, he came to me. Yeah. And I was like, man, that's brilliant. We've taken his car. We've taken everything, right, basically, at this point.
No, I'm stoked to see it happen, man.
Yeah, it should be fun. Hopefully it ends up all positive, but you never know. Could it go down the way Tupac went down in Vegas? But I'm hoping everything goes well.
Are you nervous?
No, I mean, I'm nervous for Gabi Garcia,
you
know? Not about the match, but about what feelings may develop.
Yeah. No, understandable.
So obviously we're able to steal you away in support of my new sponsor, Marek Health, and Marek Health's also sponsoring the event, the CJI. But working with you guys will be good because obviously you've seen the damage in my blood work that needs to be addressed. And you guys, I guess you guys really came at me from a health angle. And again, there's a lot of like TRT companies out there just giving people whatever they want.
Yeah.
From Anavar to Deca, just pumping guys full of whatever. So it'd be good to fix some of the damage I've done to myself with the Mexican supplements.
Yeah. It felt like a natural integration too with the Ways to Well sponsoring the ADCC. I was like, oh, like we gotta be with Craig Jones on here. So yeah, I'm pumped about it. I'm stoked to have you on board. And like you said, the approach with like the preventative medicine aspect, that's kind of, I feel like often overlooked. A lot of athletes, they want to work with a company that just gives them the drugs that they want, as opposed to like actually looking at what's under the hood and how to optimize performance and health concurrently, how to attenuate the damage. Because at the end of the day, staying in the sport is important too, and getting some sort of rigorous analysis of how do I make sure I don't kill myself while I'm doing this or shorten my life significantly. And that's what we're passionate about, and working with high-level athletes who understandably are going to expose themselves to things that may not be ideal from like a health perspective, but there are ways to go about managing the risk profile and like showing up to competition too with high blood pressure and like lipids all over the place and like all of these factors, while maybe are seen as a consequence of the drugs that's necessary, it's not truly the case, and there's definitely a safer way to go about it. So yeah, I hope that a lot of guys at the show see that there's a company they can work with that acknowledges the importance of this stuff. It's not just about, like, oftentimes these companies will have like a cookie cutter protocol. They'll be like, oh, you want TRT, here's your predetermined dose of test, here's an AI with it, oh, you want some DECA-2 for joint relief, like here you go, and kind of get you out the door. And they make their money on the medications, and they don't really, some of them don't even have doctors that work with the patients, let alone have the insight to actually make sure you're doing it safely, or even taking what makes sense. Like sometimes people get on stuff that is just nonsensical for them to reach their goals. So
get something else to sell, right? Like something they don't need.
Yeah, like it's almost like, I'm sure you've, the pill mill stuff, there's tons of documentaries about how people are getting prescribed in mass like painkillers and for just like cookie cutter diagnosis. It's not to that extreme, but it's definitely escalating in that nationwide. There are a lot of kind of pop-up clinics that exist that solely make their money off of getting you in and out the door as quickly as possible and getting you on their pre-designed protocol essentially, and having some level of individualized attention and protocol design, but also insight into your health to make sure you're even somebody who should be subjecting yourself to this stuff to begin with. Like some people are so genetically predisposed to major issues that they shouldn't even touch gear. And I'm sure you would want to know that before you become like a statistic in a YouTube video about like 28-year-old bodybuilder,
like
has a heart attack or something. Yeah, because as much as it seems relatively uncommon, oftentimes these people aren't famous enough to get stories made about them. So it doesn't get publicized as much as is actually happening. So this stuff will inevitably shorten your life, but it's about how to manage the risk profile and understand how to go about it as safely as possible. And also like dial in the way you do it. Like even the way you go about administering it, the compound selections, the dosage, frequency of administration, it all matters for helping your performance too, not just avoiding fucking yourself up. So yeah, I'm pumped about the sponsorship and stoked to have you on board, and also pumped that we can help get people who follow you and are interested in the tournament and all of that access nationwide, because I think before you were working with just one state in particular. Yeah, so that'll be cool. So we'll have a booth at the event as well if you guys want to get more information on what we're about, what kind of services we provide. But Craig's working with us now, and hope to get you dialed in, dude.
We're gonna get my blood pressure down.
Yeah.
I was concerned when I competed in Mexico, and even the Mexican doctor was concerned about my blood pressure. I was like,
no more reels about your PRs and blood pressure, bro.
We're getting them.
Yeah.
We're getting them down. Actually.
We'll have a video about your PR for actually being normal.
Yeah, getting back to
first time I had normal blood pressure. Fuck
yeah, I'll be shocked. Hey, we can get that under control. It's already heading in the right direction, I think.
Good. Yeah, 150 or over 100 is not sustainable, dude.
Yeah, dude. Well, the worst one I think was in Dubai, where it was 158. It was a
God.
158. And the guy was like giving me grief. I was like, bro, it's a grappling match. I'm not getting hit in the head. You have no power to stop this match. Let me in there. But yeah, in terms of, I mean, just feeling better, it's going to be good because of the insane travel schedule I have.
Yeah.
It's just like, just getting everything dialed in, even from a non-competition perspective, just to feel good and healthy.
Oh yeah, like the mental and cognitive aspect too. Like it'll be way easier to do what you're doing. Like you're flying all over the place promoting. It's almost like, I can just imagine what your schedule's like. So being able to even optimize your sleep quality too. If these numbers are thrown awry, like it could impede your sleep dramatically to where you never actually get proper rest. And then that, you know, the downstream negatives from all these different angles needs to be factored in by somebody who knows what they're talking about and is thoroughly educated to analyze your diagnostics, and that's our bread and butter. So
it'll be good because as it stands, my sleep protocol would be Valium or Xanax, and my morning wake-up routine would be Vyvanse.
Oh, Jesus. And you wonder why, that definitely doesn't help the blood pressure, that's for sure.
Vyvanse not good for the blood pressure, right?
Nah. Any like ADD medications in general, and this isn't to say don't take them if you have actual ADHD, but
allegedly, yeah.
Typically they're not ideal for blood pressure or resting heart rate. And the half-life on these drugs, often, they're so long, depending on the drug, of course, and how it's prepared. But like Adderall extended release, for example, like in Canada, you can't even get immediate fast release. You have to get the extended one. It's like impossible to have it out of your system enough for it to not be fucking with your sleep.
I don't believe you. I've seen Hastings Street. They can get whatever they want.
Yeah, they have some, I think they actually have literal pop-up shops for like good quality drugs. Like it's a government facilitated thing at this point to make sure they don't get like shitty stuff. So much fentanyl here, dude. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Hastings Street's like fucking Resident Evil.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I just went for a walk to a dispensary to get a vape pen, and we walked through there, and I was like, whoa. It's like Skid Row.
It's such a transition because if you're in downtown Vancouver, you'll see all these luxury shops, and then you just go a little bit more, and then all of a sudden it's like zombies.
Yes, The Walking Dead. We were getting coffee this morning. There's some wild characters in there. But it's exciting. It's interesting. But tell me, actually, before we finish up, Vyvanse. Tell me about Vyvanse. Because I only started taking this stuff because of the insane travel schedule where it would be like, I'd have to hit the ground running in a different time zone. So basically like using these things to force adjust the time zone change, which is obviously not healthy.
Yeah. In general, have you ever used modafinil before?
I took it for like 10 years every day.
And what did you think about it in general?
It was good, but I felt like it just, by the end of it, it wasn't enough.
What dosage did you go up to?
200 milligrams a day.
Okay. In general, if you're looking to force adjust to time zone shifts, obviously dialing in the actual sleep to make sure that you are telling your brain when it's time to go to bed and when to wake up. There's a whole side of the drug spectrum from the going to sleep part, but as far as the wakefulness component, Vyvanse, I don't remember what the half-life is of the drug. I wish I knew that you were on it before coming in this. I would have done a little bit more research. But in general, these drugs, they work more aggressively than something like modafinil in that they will increase the amount of dopamine and also adrenaline pretty significantly, depending on the drug, like Ritalin, Adderall, Dexedrine, which is basically a certain amphetamine, and then Adderall is like a combo of 2 amphetamines. They all differ in their onset of action, but also intensity of how much they release dopamine, inhibit the reuptake of it, and also the adrenaline component. And depending on the dose and depending on the format you're using, in general, I think the drug, if you use it like acutely to work around like an insanely not normal schedule, like what you're doing, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it just wouldn't be something I would sustainably be on long term if you don't actually have ADD and need it. Pending, like it's all contingent on what's happening under the hood though too, because it's like, I don't know how much of your blood pressure is regulated through the anabolics, how much of it's because the Vyvanse, like hypothetically, let's just say after this tournament's done, if you didn't actually have ADHD and you pulled it, like how much does your systolic and diastolic drop just from that? And then we have a little bit more insight into, okay, like your resting heart rate was 70 while on it, and now it's 60, and your blood pressure is all of a sudden like 125 over 85 or something. Yeah, like it's all layered on top of each other, right? Because you have like the water retention from the steroids, you have the increased blood viscosity, you have the adrenaline-inducing drugs that you're using. The sleep, obviously, if you're not getting great sleep too because you're traveling, that in itself will raise your blood pressure as well. So they all layer on top of each other to lead to, you know, a state where you're walking around at like 140 or 150, depending. So yeah, I think if you just straight up, it will impact your blood pressure and resting heart rate in a less than ideal way in general.
Is that bad for your heart to take stimulants and exercise?
The literature is mixed, but in general, like I said, it's multifactorial. So for somebody who weighs more than a normal human typically, or what your genetics otherwise dictated your kind of like ceiling was, like typically guys on gear, they use it to push above what they could normally achieve unless they're on actual therapeutic replacement, which technically you're not on right now.
Yeah.
200, we saw what that is in your blood work. So typically you have that stress already on your cardiovascular system of supporting like unnatural amounts of mass. And then you have the drugs that are increasing retention of minerals, fluid dynamics in the body, blood viscosity, red blood cell count is going up. And then you have the stimulants on top. Like, yeah, they will contribute to cardiac remodeling and can be detrimental to cardiovascular health long-term for sure. I think, what was the question? It was about how much does it impact your...
Yeah, Vyvanse in terms of...
But like specifically about, you said about your heart.
Yeah, about the, I guess the safety of...
Yeah, like it would indirectly via the blood pressure increases and also to some extent the resting heart rate, less or so, but still significant, would impact actual heart morphology and function. So the literature for somebody who's just taking ADHD drugs though versus not is a little bit mixed, but it's kind of hard to refute that even in the literature we see there's a blatant jump in most people in blood pressure to some extent. And if that's the only factor you're dealing with, you know, maybe it doesn't push you to a point that's actually problematic, but when it's factored in with everything else, that's when it gets really sketch. So like a lot of bodybuilders, they use aggressive stimulant protocols to suppress their appetites while they're trying to get lean, for example. And then you add that on top of the steroids. You add that on top of the fact that they're like 230 plus. You add that on top of the fact that they're training extremely intensely. You add that on top of the fact they might have sleep apnea because they're so big, it's like impeding their airway while they're sleeping, which is another thing that I think BJJ athletes should look into too. Sleep apnea, it's like one of the most overlooked, easily immediately rectifiable sleep problems for guys that have more muscle mass.
How do you fix that? Do you have to sleep with the...
There are different things you can do. Like Rogan, for example, he uses a appliance that just pulls his jaw forward a little bit. Some people get by with that just fine. Some people, the mass of their neck is so significant that it's literally almost collapsing into itself while you're sleeping on your back. For those people, like me in particular, it's not as bad as it used to be because I weigh like 40 pounds less than I used to, but I have a nose piece that just straps onto my head and it just blows continuous air while I'm sleeping. And if I don't, and I'm on my back, I will start choking in my sleep.
How much better did you feel when you started?
Oh, dude, no ADD, drugs, stimulants, steroids, nothing will compare to fixing your sleep if you have sleep apnea. Yeah, so a lot of guys that are listening, I bet, have sleep apnea. Even if the severity isn't blatant, it's something that you don't really detect because oftentimes, even if you have a significant other that even said something, they might just think you're an annoying sleeper. Like, oh, this guy snores all the time. I can't stand sleeping beside him. That is pretty common, actually, for guys to think they're just like an annoying sleeper and annoy their girlfriend, but they might actually have some spectrum of sleep apnea. And at some point, it gets really severe. If you're really heavy and you have a really bad case, it depends on the person, but you're literally choking in your sleep and you'll wake up gasping for air. And that can be an outcome that is typical among bodybuilders and powerlifters especially. But sometimes it doesn't get to the point where it's not that severe. You're kind of in this in-between where you're kind of just this annoying snorer who makes weird noises all the time, but you're never actually getting good quality sleep and you kind of go your life with elevated blood pressure, inhibited recovery, lower testosterone levels. A lot of people think they have low tests too, just from like their shit sleep when they have sleep apnea. There's a lot of stuff to look into before you just haphazardly jump on hormones too, which is, yeah.
One of my friends, Mitch, has fucking the worst. He's like choking to death constantly in his sleep and he just refuses to acknowledge he has sleep apnea. He sounds like he's dying every night, and that's probably represented in how retarded he is when he's awake.
Oh yeah, you're literally killing brain cells while you're doing that because you're depriving yourself of oxygen. Like if you wore a pulse oximeter while you were sleeping, you would literally see your oxygen levels dipping below into a territory of cell death. Yeah.
And I mean, given what I know about him, I imagine he was deprived of oxygen during childbirth as well. That's not much. Yeah, that's a cry for help for him, for sure.
That stuff though, it's like, I know some people who, oh, it's so annoying to wear the thing, I don't want to do it. Like figure out a way to make it work and try the appliance. Like some people, if you go to a orthodontist or a dentist, they might be able to do an x-ray and see how much space you have in the airway if the jaw was pulled forward. Some people can get away just fine with no strips, plus appliance, plus different kind of ways they position themselves. You might have to use like a special pillow or get a bed that like angles a little bit. Because for example, a lot of times it's a structural thing with your actual neck. So if you were able to position yourself in a certain way while sleeping and maintain comfort, you could otherwise get rid of it just by never putting yourself into the position where it like causes the constricted airway. Depends on the person though, because like for me, I lie on my back and I prefer to lie on my back, so I always naturally go there. So for me, I kind of need it, and I also had an x-ray to see, you know, how much can I pull my jaw forward, is it going to help me, and it wasn't significant enough. But yeah, some people, they might have brutal deviated septums, especially as well in this sport. Rogan's talked about that too, how he like couldn't even breathe out of his nose until he got it fixed. Something that might be worth looking at for some people. There are definitely ways to go. You're not just screwed if you don't want to use the machine. There are things to look into. But if it gets to the point where you need the machine and you're not going to do it because it's annoying, like I promise it will lower your lifespan.
I feel like it's one of those things where it's like it'd be a massive obstacle if you were dating younger women and you're like, listen, the age is not a big factor. Let me just plug in my sleep apnea.
Dude, everyone says that, and I never thought it was an issue personally. As long as you explain it. And you don't just like pull out this, like, what is this fucking kink device you got here? Yeah. You know? It's like a giant long tube that you're going to use for something.
And well, you just sit it next to the bed and sleep. Is it hard to travel with that?
No, it's fits in a little zip up thing. It's like, yeah, big, I guess. I don't know. It's it depends if you're using the full face mask, it's a little bit more space consuming, but it's not much different.
And what does it do? It just pumps air?
Yeah, it like will assess when you need air and make sure it's continuously being pushed, and it will modulate depending on how much you need. So if you need more, it will auto-regulate up or down depending on what the pressure is needed. There are different devices, some that are better than others, that actually, some are just continuous and some auto-regulate. You want ideally the one that auto-regulates. And yeah, man, like the difference is, I don't think I could name something more impactful than that if you actually had sleep apnea. Like there is no amount of anything you could do that would be more substantially improving your quality of life and duration, probably.
Wow. And how do you get measured for sleep apnea?
You could get a sleep study done where they actually like hook you up and see how bad it is with, I think it's called polysom. I forget the type of measurement they use, but it's basically assessing your sleep quality. It's like the most high level version of those like devices people use to track their sleep. It's the actual like clinical grade version of that those devices base their, you know, tech on. And from there you can see how many times you're apneaing per hour, how long you're not breathing for when it happens, what your oxygen levels dip to, how severe it is it central or is it like obstructive, like via your neck? Because some people, it's actually their brain. When they go to sleep, their brain will not signal properly to tell them to breathe. So they don't even have a neck obstructive issue. It's literally their brain isn't firing properly to say, okay, breathe now. So those people, they actually might need, I think it's like an implant. It's called Inspire, I think. And
implant in the brain?
Yeah, something like that.
Holy shit.
I'm not as well versed in remembering what it does exactly, but I know it's like a signaling device that kind of overcomes the lack of that signaling that you need to actually tell you to breathe. But that's less common. For most people watching are going to be guys who are weighing more than normal, very muscular. Even if you're really lean, by the way, still happens.
And for a lot of guys get on tests to get sleep apnea, right? Is there any correlation with that? Or is
yeah,
that
like increased water retention, body weight in general, muscle mass, like it all contributes for sure. And that's kind of just the double-edged sword of getting fucking huge, bro.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny if you told a guy we could get you jacked, but you'd need a sleep apnea machine if that would be a contributing factor.
Yeah. Some people don't get it, even that are really big, but it depends on the person, and it's really common. And I think one of the most overlooked things that people don't think of because they're literally unconscious and don't know what's happening. It's not like an immediate feedback thing. You just feel like shit all the time. You don't know why. And you think, oh, maybe I just need to fix my training routine or whatever. Like, you could just be sleeping horrendously. Even if you're asleep perceptively for 8 hours, you wake up after those 8 and it was like you slept for like 2.
Yeah. Right.
When mine was at its worst, I would sit in university lectures. I was like 20, 21 years old, weighing like 265, and I would just immediately fall asleep within 2 minutes every time. I couldn't even drive at that point because it would be
a shit lecturer though. As well, man.
They all thought I was like the worst student because I just fucking nod off in 2 seconds every time.
Is this why there's a stereotype of jacked idiots?
Maybe. Definitely doesn't help.
Sleep apnea is the cause.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing I could think of that makes you stupider quickly among jacked people than that, probably. And I guess gear actually kills brain cells too, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, technically steroids make you stupider.
Oh, shit.
Up to, again, it's like if you go above the natural levels that you need, it's neurotoxic.
So at 1300, how much damage am I doing to the brain?
I don't know, man. Probably not a lot, realistically. Yeah. Your levels aren't insane. It's just not what you would otherwise achieve naturally.
So is this, I guess this fits the bill for why jiu-jitsu guys are idiots. It's the sleep apnea and the steroids.
Maybe. It doesn't help, for sure.
Case closed. That's why Nicky Rod can't read.
Definitely not Natty, bro. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably a good way to end it on Nicky Rod's stupidity, I think.
Sure. Well, anyway, I'm stoked about the partnership and appreciate you signing us on, man. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Check us out, merrickhealth.com.